Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle alongside, joined now by Coach Shannon Griffith. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you doing?
Cannot complain. Nobody is, still no one wanting to listen to it. So we're going to roll on. Another big week on the gridiron for Indiana. Another challenge, though, is this week they will take on the Huskies without their starting quarterback. But I don't see much of a threat defensively by Washington. Looking at the stats, they don't give up a lot of yards, but they're not, they're weird. Their quarterback is one of the statistical leaders. They've got a running back who is a statistical leader, but their offense averages like 24 points a game. I think it's 24.1 points per game or something. They don't score many points.
Well, they have the same problem Nebraska did with kicking game. Their field goal kicker has not been very good inside the red zone for them this year, and it's really hurt them. And he's got, I guess you would call the yips in some respects now, because it's all mental. Now, whether or not he continues on with that young man or not, I don't know. But, coming out of a bye week, I'm sure they had some competition for that specific position. But you're correct. I mean, they've struggled in the red zone offensively some. And part of it is the difference of, not having a kicker that's able to put it through the uprights when you're in that 30-yard, line.
Yeah. And and talk about using Taven Jackson this week instead of the starter, Curtis Rourke, who's out, of course, with his thumb that he had medically a procedure on. They call it surgery, but I guess anything is surgery if they put a scalpel and a pair of tweezers to you, probably. I'm not downplaying his injury. Trust me. I know what it's like to have ever just take your nail down too far, how bad that hurts. Losing a whole nail. It's just going to be painful. And I forget who it was that made a good point. You can't take the juice. You can't shoot that up because then you cannot feel the ball. Right. And so, no pun intended, but it's a touchy situation.
Right. Every quarterback that's played the position, and back in the day I did, that was the one thing you always feared, is hitting somebody's helmet or face mask, because when you follow through, your index finger and your thumb are always susceptible for those type of hits. And Curtis got it in the right spot. And that nail, what probably happened ending is probably throbbing and swelling at the same time, as those nerve endings at the end the nail are very painful, especially if you've, ever stubbed a toe or had something drop on it. It's just like throws you through the roof. So I'm assuming, pure assumption, that the surgical procedure they did was to remove the nail to eliminate any other issues with it. And that is why maybe there is promise of him coming back as early as next week, is from what I'm gathering. But again, that is all hypothetical assumption on my part when it comes to what did or did not occur on Monday.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they were going to bring him back that quickly, but it just shows you that either it's something he can deal with, because obviously they wouldn't if not, and they don't want to slow this train down. This is kind of a little, I don't even want to call it a pit stop this week, because I don't know what it's going to end up. But I in my predictions in the Hoosier.com, I know that I picked, I'll tell you right now, it hasn't come out yet, but my score was like 40-17, I think. And I put the 40 down. I'm not quite confident they'll hit that mark with Taven, but I'm not sure that they won't. And I put it down because they have not missed on the 40-point mark since opening up the season against Florida International. So, and I don't think that Washington can stop the passing and the running game. And as long as Taven Jackson stays within, they're not going to put him in bad situations. But I will say that Curtis Rourke makes a lot of passes during the course of a game that are really good. And that's going to be the telltale sign. He's going to have to go 4 quarters now and do this and not make the mistakes. And so that's going to be a huge difference. Indiana cannot turn the ball over. No one can. I know that you miss Maryland. I don't care. You ignore that. You do not turn the ball over. You know that as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to ball security, whether you're running or throwing. I mean, the Nebraska game was a prime example. When you're playing a top-tier team, if the takeaway battle becomes more of a stat line than anything, and Indiana had 5 against Nebraska, you cannot turn the ball over 5 times and expect to win. And especially against Indiana now, because they've averaged they have points off of turnovers, I think, is like 49 this year. That's crazy. And that's where they make people hurt. I mean, you turn it over against Indiana, you're going to pay a price. And that's the beauty of it, because that is always in the backs of the minds of the team that you're playing against about not wanting to turn it over. Taven Jackson, look, I've got a ton of confidence in Taven Jackson. I always have. He got thrown to the Wolves last year coming in as a true freshman. And you saw a freshman type of player last year, kind of like Raiola is, where they make bad decisions with the football. Raiola made 3. And so that was the one thing that held Taven back. But I thought when he came in the game on Saturday and he did 2 throws, and I was like, this is not going to stop. The train is moving because of what he did in those first 2 drives of the when he was in there. So I think there's a lot of confidence in Taven. I think the coaches have a lot of confidence in Taven. I think the team has a lot of confidence in Taven, and I think that showed on Saturday when they rallied it around him. Now, does the run game have to be a little bit better? Does the defense have to be a little bit better than they have been? Yes, they do. Does the kicking game have to be better than they have been? Yes, because maybe those drives that we're used to seeing continue may not. Does Sig go for it on 4th down with a backup quarterback in the game? Flip a coin on that question. If I'm guessing, I think he does, because I just think that's the way Sig rolls. I think he's the guy that he has a ton of confidence in the guys on the field, and he's really willing to let her roll and see what all happens. But I think Indiana has 2 solid, if not really good, Big Ten quarterbacks on their roster. And the second one's getting a chance on Saturday to show what he can do. And like you said, the one thing that makes Indiana's offense so hard to defend is the RPO game. They make defenses wrong. I mean, what they did to Tony White in Nebraska, who's no slouch as a coordinator, it didn't matter what he called, because what he called was wrong. And that's the thing that makes a team like Indiana so dangerous, is because the defenses just don't know what to expect. And that's ultimately the tough part as a defense.
Yeah, and that's what I think that Washington is going to run into. And don't think that they don't have some names on that side of the ball.
Oh yeah,
the coaching side. We were talking about it in the before we came on air, and I don't know. I don't think I remember mentioning this yesterday, but co-offensive coordinator for Indiana, Tino Sunseri, his brother Vinny. You got Tino and you got Vinny. Hey, the Sunseris. Yo, hey, Tino, Vinny, come in here. So a proud of Italian-American family, but Vinny Sunseri is the safeties coach for Washington. He played at Alabama, and then he's been in the NFL for the last 4 years under Steve Belichick, who spent 12 years both at the for the New England Patriots. And yes, that is the same name that may sound familiar, but we're not done. Brennan Carroll is the co-offensive coordinator and was the offensive line coach.
Yeah, offensive line coach,
which is very unique for an offensive line coach to be a co-OC. But his name is Brennan Carroll, and yes, that is the son of Pete Carroll. So a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Lineage.
Well, that and when you have family that give family members jobs.
Shoot.
Man,
now you got me
every
thinking.
time I try to act like I'm smart, this happens.
Well, don't worry, I'm the same boat. Nepotism.
Nepotism. Thank you very much.
Big word.
Just kidding about that. They sound. I mean, obviously, these guys, Belichick, 12 years in the NFL. That's a long time, man. And that was during the good run.
Well, so, he's a part of his daddy. He has a firm foundation on defensive football, and he gets it from his father, who is a miraculous coach and everything that goes with it. But football ideology is in his bloodstream. And if you look at their defense, they're similar in some ways to Indiana's defense in terms of yardage and things of that magnitude. So it's a tough defense. Indiana's not going to face a slouch defense. It doesn't matter who they play. Each and every week is going to be a step bigger. And that's the way it is when you're on a roll and you become the hunted as opposed to being the hunter. I mean, you're going to run into, teams that are going to bring their A game or their best chance to bring their A game. And Jed Fish, I have a ton of respect for him and what he is as an offensive minded football coach. They beat Michigan. Now that was at Washington, but they beat Michigan in a tight ball game. The thing about Jed is that, you give a guy like him 2 weeks to study you. He's going to have some things for Indiana's defense and Coach Haynes that maybe they haven't seen, just kind of like what Northwestern did. They had not seen or prepared against. Little wrinkles, and then they got the quarterback. That's a good quarterback. I mean, he's a top tier power quarterback that can do things with the football. So now they, like you said, Jim, I think outside of the couple guys here and there on offense, they don't have like Indiana has, where they have about 6 or 7 receivers that can go out and get it done, or 4 different backs that can come in and change up tempos and things of that magnitude. But Jed Fish is a good enough coach to understand what the task at hand is, and he'll have them well prepared. Now, the biggest thing is them coming from the West Coast. And I'm kind of surprised about this, that the Big Ten has really done to some of these West Coast teams. When you think about playing a 12 o'clock game in Indiana, it's 9 o'clock for them. And so that has been something that has been talked about frequently with the West Coast teams traveling east and having to play noon kickoff games. And that's a 9 o'clock body count for them,
which is a lot more difficult, in my opinion, than the teams from the East going west, because you gain that time. But yet, if we look back prior to when Penn State beats USC and but Washington beat Michigan, at the time before those two, so now it's 2, I think it's 2 of 11 now, only twice in 11 games in which Big Ten teams are traveling more than 2 time zones, I think, they've lost. They are like 2 out of 11. So that shows you how, and that's gaining time, much less coming the opposite way. But, you look at Oregon last week, they beat Purdue 35-0 in a very pedestrian-like game. That's probably part of that. And that was on a Friday night.
Yeah, so, that was a night kickoff. So what's that, 5 o'clock for them, mentality-wise? So it's not as big a deal as playing a 9 o'clock game. But I'm sure Jed Fish over 2 weeks now has had a different time clock for their bodies in terms of when they practiced and things of that magnitude. So they're prepared for when they come east, that their bodies won't be a big issue for them in terms of mindset. We'll see, but I mean, it's a huge advantage for an East Coast team to play a West Coast team at 9 a.m. They're, when the West Coast team's on a 9 a.m. mindset.
Yeah, you look at the stats for the Huskies, and while quarterback Will Howard is up there, he's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 5th in the conference in throwing. Now that's just by yardage. He has the 5th most yardage, but he has 162.6 quarterback rating. He has 13 touchdowns to only 2 picks. So 8.6 yards per attempt, which couple yards behind Curtis Rourke. So he's decent. It's not like he's off the. Then you look at the rushing, and Washington has, like I said, Jonah Coleman. He's 4th in the conference in rushing with 681 yards, 5 touchdowns, almost 7 yards per attempt. That's pretty damn good this far into the season. Indiana, however, has Justin Ellison, who is at 8th in the conference at 7 yards per attempt. And they also have Tyson Lawton at 16th at over 5 yards per carry, just showing the multiplicity of this offense of Indiana's. But I talked about Washington a minute ago, but they only average like 24 points a game, where Indiana's averaging double that, exactly double that. And I know that's going to be without Curtis Rourke, but there's so much of this offense that goes together. I think that they may be able to slow it down, but they're not going to stop it. And if Taven Jackson plays like he did last Saturday against Nebraska, then there should be very little to no difference.
No, and that's what I mean. I think he's going to get all the reps this past week, of course, and I'm sure Tino's done a very good job in terms of preparation and things of that magnitude. And I would assume that Taven has paid real close attention to what has occurred each and every week on a Saturday. And the only difference for Taven's going to be that he got more reps in practice and now he's going to chance to start. Well, that is not an uncommon situation for him. Having played last year in some big games early on, the Louisville game and some others, but I just don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, my biggest concern when it comes to this Saturday or anything forward, if things don't go the way we anticipate them, is Indiana has 2 true freshmen in the background that are 1 to 2 snaps away of having to play.
Yeah, Tyler Cherry asked me the other day, who is the second string quarterback right now?
Well, I haven't seen them come out with one thing or the other on that, so I would imagine it's going to be one of those Tyler Cherry or Alberto Mendoza.
Alberto Mendoza.
If I had to guess, it's probably Tyler because he's been there the longest.
But didn't we see Alberto play more in, what was it, the FIU game?
Yeah, there was a game there that I think he may have had more snaps. I don't know.
Tyler was hurt or something, but
either way, that has more of a concern for me in the old coach mindset than it does than Taven Jackson trotting on the field Saturday, because he's been there, done that. He has prepared as a starter before, but you're trying to get ready for what ifs, and you got 2 other quarterbacks that have hardly any snaps with the 1 offense or the 2 offense for that matter from the start of camp. So that would be my only concern next, is if the what ifs become a part of it. And someone was saying this week, well, maybe we'll see Taven Jackson run it more. Well, I'm not so sure that's the case, just because of what is there and what's not there. They're not going to handcuff him, of course, but I don't see him throwing in a whole lot of quarterback design runs against Washington when that's not what they've done previously. I think it's the same apparatus that they'll run with the RPOs and give a quarterback a 2-way go and, go from there. But I have all the confidence in the world, and everybody else should, with Taven Jackson running out on the field on Saturday. And if he's ready to go, like you said, Jim, and he shows what he did last week, leading them to 28 points in the second half, I don't see any reason why he can't run the offense as efficient as maybe Curtis has done previously up to this point.
I agree with you, man. I appreciate you. Look forward to Saturday. Make sure you tune in for the Hard Truth Distilling Company Indiana football post-game show. This will be coming to you as soon as coach's pressers end, and he'll probably have a lot of media he's got to do first. But
yeah, he's got a couple more on campus this week. So
make sure you are following at Hoosier Tailgate as well. Coach Griff, appreciate you, brother. We'll see you on Saturday.
Absolutely. And I'll be on tonight, 7:30 live, doing a breakdown scouting report of Washington Huskies. We'll see you.